Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk to you about actually putting together your presentation aid. So we're going to talk about three things today. We're going to talk about continuity, we're going to talk about typefaces and fonts, and we're going to talk about color. All three of these things are things that you should keep in mind and remember when you're putting together a presentation aid. So first we're going to talk about continuity, which is one of the big things you really need to focus on because that has to do with keeping your entire presentation aid the same and appealing to your audience. So our textbook says that the principle of continuity dictates that you apply the same design decisions you make for one aid to all the aids you display in a speech. This helps maintains a consistent and professional image, and it ensures that viewers don't become distracted by your presentation aid, which is hugely important because you really want your message to be heard and not your audience to be looking at your presentation aid, trying to figure out what it says, looking at like all the crazy pictures you put on there, because they're really not going to walk away knowing what you want them to know. So in order to do this, you want to choose appropriate colors, font sizes, style of type, and you want to make sure that you apply those things to each and every one of your slides or posters or whatever your visual aid is. Keeping these things the same makes it so that your audience isn't immediately trying to pick out the difference in each one of your slides. So the next thing we're going to talk about is typefaces and fonts. The typeface is a specific style of lettering, such as Times New Roman, Cosmic Sans, that type of thing. And there are two types of typefaces. There's the serif typeface and the sans serif typeface. So the serif typeface has small flourishes at the top and bottom of each letter. For example, Times New Roman. If you look at your research papers and things that you turn in for school, you can kind of see that there's like a little line on the ending of each letter. That just kind of makes it a crisp and clean block. This type of typeface is best used in larger bodies of text because our book believes that it's easier on the eyes, so that people aren't straining themselves reading a whole bunch of text. The sans serif typeface is more block-like and linear, so it doesn't have those small flourishes. For example, our presentation here is using Source Sans Pro, which it's got sans in the name, so it's a sans serif typeface. And if you look closely, there aren't those little flourishes on the letters in this type of typeface. These typefaces are best used in smaller amounts of text, such as headings and just smaller things, because without having such a crisp and clean look, it's a little bit harder on the eyes. Just always make sure that whatever typeface and font you use is easily legible for your audience. So the font is the size of the lettering. So on a presentation aid such as a PowerPoint or a Prezi like we're using today, the best use of font is 18 point or larger. So on papers that we generally turn in for class, those are 12-point font. But it's been shown that a 36 size font is best for headings. For subheadings, a 24 size font, and for regular text is 18. When it's being used projected, it's a lot easier for the audience to see without it being too big to be distracting. So the last thing I'd like to talk about today is color. Color can be used to draw attention to key points. It can set the mood for the presentation, and it can also be dangerous, so you want to be careful. So as far as drawing attention to key points, color makes your audience's eyes go directly to those key points that you want them to know, especially if they're in warm colors such as red, yellow, or orange. But you want to be careful, though, depending on the background you use, because those colors could also be hard to see depending on the color of background. You want to use bold and bright colors and try to contrast colors rather than clash them. So for example, black on white or white on black, those are contrasting colors that make it easy to see, but like yellow on red is much more clashing. It's more difficult to see because you just have too many bright colors going on. Using color also sets the mood for a presentation because different colors are often associated with different moods. For example, red is associated with failure, while green is associated with success. So if you want to be successful in your presentation, use the color green. And you, sorry, drawing a blank here. And the mood is important because you don't want to be talking about something serious such as, I don't know, abortion or the death penalty, but use fun and colorful fonts like yellow or a lime green or something like that. You would want to use something more associated with a somber mood. You want to be careful too, though, because using color can also be dangerous. It can become distracting, which again we discussed. That's really important to not be distracting because you want your audience to pay attention to what you're listening to rather than what's behind you. And it can become confusing. I've provided a slide coming up that shows a really bad example of a slide. It's too confusing, it's hard to read, it's inconsistent, and it also kind of looks like you're trying to cover up the fact that you might be unprepared by spending so much time designing your visual aid rather than focusing on what you're talking about. So with just those things to keep in mind, all those things, focusing on continuity, choosing the right typefaces and fonts, and using color carefully, you'll have a really great visual aid. So I think now that we are going to go into the group activity, which Mark and Tanner will go ahead and take from here, and then they will conclude.